My mission is to help make our food system healthier, more sustainable and ethical. In a market where consumers are making more informed decisions about the food they buy, I believe that food businesses catering to these needs will be the most successful. I'm Michael Fox, CEO and co-founder of shiitake mushroom company Fabe Food. For years, I've been obsessed with our food system. Welcome to my podcast where I talk shiitake with successful chefs, food industry executives and entrepreneurs to learn about what's led to their success in the food industry. In this episode of Talking Shiitake, I speak with Piccolo Me co-founder Charlie Hachem. Charlie takes us through his childhood, living and breathing hospitality by working in the family coffee business with his mum, dad, cousin and brother Roy. In 2012, he and Roy then co-founded Piccolo Me. They've grown this amazing coffee business to 42 locations and have now set up their parent company Fabe, Food and Beverage Enterprises, under which they've acquired Soul Bowl, a healthy salad and smoothie chain, and launched their own food ordering and dark kitchen platforms. Charlie takes us through growing the business, including some of their viral marketing campaigns like the Cheeseburger Croissant, which got them a lot of media and attention from some very unhappy French. It was wonderful to hear this story, and I'm very happy to bring you Charlie Hachem. Thanks for joining, Charlie. Awesome to have you on Talking Shiitake.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, you work with your father, you work with your brother Roy. Take us through your childhood, growing up. How did you all get into the hospitality business?
So my earliest memory is me running around my dad's his first little business when he came out of Lebanon, and it was called Cheeky Donut. So he used to run this donut shop that evolved into a sandwich shop that had like vending machines, and I don't know, he was just trying to do a bit of everything. And I just remembered growing up in that store, running around there and being passed around so I'd be in the store, then I'd go to it was in Alexandria, so you know how you got the houses and shops. So I remember, being in customers' hands and then, spending time in their neighbor's house, having naps at their house. So it was really community. Then from that, my first real job in hospitality was working at Erskineville in the ovals for Redfern. So Dad on the weekends would run the canteens, and he'd put me and my cousin, who was a bit older than me, but just fresh off the boat, didn't speak any English. So I had to do all the translation and all the money. And so that really helped me develop my skills. Back then we were serving Nescafe out of a big urn, and you're pouring it into a foam cup, you're selling it for $2. So that was pretty cool. It was a lot more easier back then to do business. And those are my real early memories of being in hospitality. And then from that, Dad started getting to cafes. And then so I used to go in on the weekends. And I really remember, so in the cafe, the most prominent location is sitting on the coffee machine. So if you're the shit, you're on the coffee machine, you're the barista back in the day. And that's where Dad used to stand. So he had to the left, my mum making the sandwiches. He's in the coffee machine, and me to the right doing the dishes. So in my head, I'm like, get to that, the coffee machine and be the barista, be the center of attention. So that gave me that real big drive to do it. So eventually on the weekends, I'd run, take over, and then I'd be the shit. I'll be on the coffee machine, and I'd run the show from there. So that was in the western suburbs. And back then, when we look at coffee and the way it was made, it was Dad sitting at the coffee machine, no receipts, no nothing, getting coffee screamed at him. 100% don't think he ever made different milks. It was all the same milk. He used to have a jug. It was like about this big. So he's like there frothing the jugs. Coffee was the way the coffee basket wasn't like the normal 32 gram. It was like this big. So he'd just make shots into this jug, free pour the shots. Then he'd get this milk, like the heat, like atomic heat. It was and really frothy. Use a spoon, pour all the milks, then froth all the thing, and then just send it out. Like, you got what you got given.
None of this crazy customization that goes on today.
Yeah. I want what? In Australia back then, latte. It was either flat white or caps. Yeah. If you went to an espresso shop in the early days, flat white caps. Long black started coming a little bit later. Then espresso started, once we started in the CBD. Yeah, so that was my real first experience of coffee. And then from Western Sydney, Dad was in the city with a new business partner, and they're like, we're going to go open up in the city. and like that was a real big shock to us. So we went to the CBD, and Dad and his business partner took over. They walked past this place, and the guy was just fitting it out, and Dad's like, "How much you want? I want to buy this now." And so yeah, so the guy just fitted it out, and we bought it within like a month of him trading, and it was a bar and a restaurant. So you're going from like suburbs where it's just like serve whatever you want to now the city where you have a cafe on every corner. So you can't fuck around anymore. So from that, I learned early on, all right, if I'm going to make this work, I really need to go and train with the best. So I would do that Monday to Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, I would go work for competition baristas and like venues that were really noted for, coffee and latte art and all that. And this venue was pretty cool. It was like a bar, like a bar cafe, really cool starting out. And we used to have this little area at the front. And every day during lunch, because I was a barista, for the barista it gets quiet because you're not doing coffees in the. So I would go and sit down with customers, and I would start giving everyone out a piccolo. And that's really where that whole piccolo in the city kind of thing started. So I wouldn't charge my friends, and what started with like 2 people became 4, 6, 10, 12, until we overtook this whole front little area, the cafe, and it was just a hangout. And from that, it got really busy, and it was really stressful because it was a restaurant as well. Then we said, you know what, we love the city, but running a restaurant, running chefs was too hard. Let's focus on some cafes. So then we started working cafes, and at the CBD at the peak, we were probably about 15 cafes. So we were on every corner. It was a pretty cool experience. So we had a combination of 2 brands. So we had one brand, which is part of my uncle's company, which is called Press Cafe, and they started off in Montreal, Canada. And then we started doing that, and it was franchising. So instead of opening 10 different brands, we started focusing on building a brand and building that franchise network. And we started opening 1, 2, 3, and it started going off really well. But we found it very challenging to manage franchisees. And the hardest thing was, if we wanted to do something quickly, we couldn't do it in a franchise system. So me and my brother, we just did an offshoot called Piccolo Me. So we had this really strong franchise system, but then we opened this one offshoot called Piccolo Me. And it was really just to be unfranchisey. We just wanted to do what we wanted, whenever we wanted, without anyone's approval or their say. Yeah, and then that took off really crazy.
I can feel with the energy that you and Roy have. I can see why you would want to do that and have that control. Yeah, that makes sense.
We just wanted to do something really cool, just focused on coffee. Coffee, paninis, real good experience. And again, because if you understand hospitality isn't about just food and coffee. It's about service and making people feel hospitable. And we were really good at that. We'd almost become friends with customers. Customers would come in and be like, "How are you talking to that guy like that? He's the CEO of this bank." And we're like, "What? That guy? Yeah, that guy's my boss." I'm like, "Oh, he's a nice guy." Like, yeah, to you he is. A good barista almost became like your hairdresser. Knows everything about you. It's hospitality. You got to just go with it, and you got to keep that human element. People come to you not to hear your problems, to vent their problems, and to show and it's all about that experience. So Piccolo Me, when we first opened that on Bridge Street, we killed it. Like, it was going nuts. So we're like, when you're successful at something, you just keep going because you're like, nothing can stop me. And then I think a year or a little bit later, we opened our second, and then our third we opened up in Castlereagh Street. And in Castlereagh Street, we had this back corner and this big outdoor area. Our space was owned by one landlord, and then the outdoor space in front of us and the rest of the building was owned by a big institutional owner. And they were always tit for tat, so we always got stuck in that battle. So we could never use the outdoor space in front of us. And it was like 200-300 square meters. In the CBD, you need that space. So we just found really cool, innovative ways to make it work. So that store started off really poorly. We're like sitting as a family, like, oh my God, what did we do? We're fucked, like we put all our money in this, it was still self-funded. So we're like, what do we do? And then my brother, he's very, you've met Roy. He's a very left field, the way he thinks is crazy. So Roy's like, you know what? If I can't if the customers don't come to them, I'm gonna go to them. So we started off with like little mini golf at the front. He'd bring in a little basketball set. People can, if they get the hoop and get it in, they'll shoot. And then Roy, once he started finding out about this gamification of the cafe, he started putting it into food. Roy, my brother, had this whiteboard in his bedroom. That's not a normal thing. And he'd wake up in the middle of the night, draw an idea, go to sleep, bring it into the cafe the next day, and somehow that item will go viral. So one of the things, so a couple of things went viral, but one of the biggest things that he created that went viral, and we got a lot of like from the French, all over the French media, was Roy designed a cheeseburger croissant. So I think we were one of the first companies as well that started playing around with desserts and gamification of desserts and deconstructing desserts. So we would have like a do-it-yourself hot chocolate, which was a Nutella. It was essentially a blob of Nutella frozen. You'd put it in your hot chocolate, you melt it around, and you'd have a hot chocolate. But then we had a lot of trouble with Nutella. They came and gave us a cease and desist. So Nutella back then was supposed to have on bread and it's supposed to be healthy for you.
So they didn't like you, right, doing a hot
No,
chocolate?
they didn't like what we're doing. But that wasn't it. From that, we went and did a Nutella fried ice cream. and, and then from that, we did Nutella, the world's biggest Nutella fried ice cream, which was like a massive ball. And then we had challenges. And then we had Nutella iced coffee. So, yeah, it just went really crazy.
How much did the press from those kind of events, how much did that drive sales for you? Did you get new customers in?
It was crazy. We're talking like 2014, 15. Like Instagram is just starting out. No one really understands viral back then. We didn't either. So when you're going viral, you think you're like, yes, this is gonna last forever, and it doesn't. That was one of the biggest lessons we learned was when you're big, go hard, because it doesn't last forever. Whatever you're doing, someone's in the background thinking of how am I going to do this bigger and better. So around that viral stages, I think we had got up to about 6 or 7 stores because people just wanted us, offering us locations here, take over that. And we're doing really well until we stopped doing really well, until we started, until you couldn't keep up with viral anymore. What we were doing, we were starting to scale it back a bit and become, normal. And you still got venues that are one that can just go crazy still. We learned a lot from those days and about how important it is to not to have growth for the sake of growth.
So that was about 6 or 7 stores. You had a bit of a sort of inflection point, and how did you turn that around? Because you're at like 40 Piccolo Me locations now, is that right?
So 43, we'll probably be at 50 by the end of the year. So it's exciting. I mean, we're 50, and I always look at it and go, oh wow, we're 50, but why aren't we at 150? There's other competitors in our space that started at the same time, but are over 100. And I look back to it, it's because of we were so big, and then we got brought back to reality. And I think it was important that it wasn't about growing for the sake of growing, and we wanted to create a company that could support growth, but was also stable.
How did you overextend yourselves? Was it like taking sites, trying to grow too quickly, taking sites that were suboptimal, or?
It's having that mistake and the belief that you're unstoppable and untouchable. In hospitality, it's super competitive. What you did yesterday, it doesn't necessarily mean tomorrow it's going to guarantee success. And I think that's something that we've embraced. And with the Piccolo Me model as it is today, it's all about everyday favorites, everyday value, and providing experience beyond your expectation. So it's not about one hit wonders anymore. It's about bringing people in every day. And we're quite lucky because we're in a business that coffee is still one of the most affordable meals. So people will have a coffee and not have a breakfast, or smashed avo or whatever it is. If we can still maintain, that really good price point where someone can go, I'll have a medium cap and that's my breakfast done. Then we can have 7 strikes at a customer if they're coming 7 days to our business. And then you could have 2 to 3 strikes at them a day. Because some people, generally, if someone has a coffee, they have 2. And so once we learnt that up, once we figured that out, then we're like, how do we start adding value to those points? How do we get that person that comes for breakfast, comes for the afternoon coffee? How do we get them to buy lunch again? And so through LTOs and just providing a really good product at a good price point.
That's great. And how do you think about the food menu at the Piccolo Me stores?
So when we first started, it was really about if Roy got to add something, I got to add something. So we're not allowed to do that anymore because we have a team now and we have to focus on data and what sells and what doesn't sell and what's trending. But at the base of any menu, and I think any business will tell you, your core items always sell or always outsell. For us in our menu now, we have bacon egg roll, but we also have something called the hangover roll, which is a bacon egg roll with hash brown, some burger cheese, and a barbecue sauce. And that's our number one seller in store and online. Like people don't want to come in and be confused. And if people are new to your brand, they want to go to something that they can trust and is easy to understand. If you're going to go open a cafe and just put all these wild and crazy things, if I'm new to your brand, I'm going to be scared. So it's important to always have those basics and those things that you trust. If I go to a pub, I'm going to go and get a chicken schnitzel. No pub can fuck up a chicken schnitzel. And if they do that schnitzel good the first time, then the second time I'll be a bit more adventurous. And I think that's what we try to do. And I think it's what we do really well is get them in the first time, get them on a product that's really good quality, something that's supposed to be normally basic, and then they'll come in and create that habit.
On that, so that's so funny hearing the evolution of you and Roy doing the tit for tat menu development, but now you are a little more data driven and consumer research driven. How do you and the team do that customer research now, and how do you get that data?
One of the biggest projects we undertook was installing Lightspeed, which is it's a cloud-based POS system, and that was a huge thing for us because we had to get buy-in from our franchisees and our corporate stores. Previous to that, we were using a legacy system that didn't talk to. So we were guessing what people were selling. We were assuming they were doing well. A lot of it was on hunch and feedback. And the problem with feedback, especially from operators, they generally like to tell you what they like as the best-selling items. So someone would be like, we have a sandwich called the Papa Piccolo. They're like, yeah, it's the best sandwich. Everyone sells it. We people buy 100 of it. And then you really go into the data and you're like, you've only sold one of them this month. Yeah, I know, but I love it.
Yeah.
And
it's the owner who sorted it.
Yeah, so it was really exciting because for the first time ever, we could sit down and see what was selling, when it was selling, and then once we got that, we tried to figure out why it was selling, and then how we could get other products replicate that success. What we learned really early on was that you don't need the biggest menu to keep everyone happy, and it was that's one of the biggest traps a lot of cafe operators get into is when they overextend, especially when a customer comes in and says, I really love, satay chicken. Why don't you do it? If you did it, you'd kill it. So really getting all that white noise out was really important and just focusing on who we are and why we're in this.
So that Lightspeed data would help you for seeing what's working on the menu. If you're thinking about new things and new trends and things, what do you do to sort of learn and understand customers on that front?
So it's important to look at what the market is doing. But generally, when you're looking at what the market is doing, it's too late. So you kind of have to learn from what is trending and try it, and I guess to a certain extent, guess what will come. A lot of it still has to be on what your heart believes is right for the brand, what tastes good. Because if you're going to, at the moment, there's a lot of matcha and foam going around. If you're going to start that now, it's too late. Everyone's already on that bandwagon and jumped on it.
Yeah.
So it's now, okay, looking at, all right, this is trending. What could we create that would do some success? We've just recently launched Red Bull infusions online in our stores. And that's, in America, it's everywhere. But in Australia, it wasn't. And it was funny. I was listening to a podcast and one of the owners from Dutch Bros was talking about, one of our best products that we sell is Red Bull infusions. And I'm like, okay, there's a market. It's huge. It's one of their top selling products. We're in a similar space. Maybe we need to bring it in. And on the back of that, from memory, it was like 200% growth in Red Bull sales. Because generally, if you're going to a cafe, you're not buying a Red Bull. You're buying a coffee. So we were able to take a product that we had, enhance it, and make it suitable for our space.
What are you infusing the Red Bull into? What's the drink?
So we're working with a company called Menin, and we get like syrups and we add it, and we create new profiles on the base of the Red Bull. So we have the original and sugar free. Then we add our own spin. Like we have a yuzu one, we have a hibiscus one, and we're also looking at how do we make it color.
So you've been in the coffee space for quite a long time. How have you seen the alt milk kind of space evolve in the time that you've been in coffee?
Back in the day when I was the barista, it killed my life because we went from just full cream and skim milk. We had a jug called magic milk, so which was a bit of skim, a bit of full cream, top it up. To now, where you couldn't do that anymore. You had to go to, you needed, and you went from two or three jugs to like now we have 7 jugs or 20 jugs on our bench. We got one for soy, we got almond, we got one for I see is the next big thing. It's a lot of money being pushed behind it. It's more sustainable from what I heard. So I see almond coming down a bit. Soy is still there. And then you're seeing the alternatives like lactose free and them. But it's very hard to manage because in business, we're looking at how do we make things faster and how do we optimize speed of service? How do we reduce labor? And we've introduced some machinery like it's called the Uber Milk, which does full cream for us already frothed. So essentially you press a button and it puts it in a jug and you can go. But if we keep adding more milks, then we still have a reliance on a barista to froth milk, and that's the slowest part of making coffee. We embrace alternative milk, but it stops us being efficient and speed of service.
So yeah, you've got the Fabe logo behind you, Food and Beverage Enterprises. Cool logo. Would be better if it had an L in the middle. Maybe you could do Food and Beverage Legendary Enterprises or something might do better.
There you go.
Yep, there we go. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's better. So you're almost there. You're 80% cool.
I have to tell you the story. Like when we think, when you get to a stage and you think you're really smart and you've got everything down packed. The name prior to this name was actually a retail group, and it was. So we started off with the word retail because we don't just do cafes. We're in other spaces now. And then me and Roy were like, you know what? Instead of saying retail, why don't we say R and then eat? And then, you know what? Instead of tail, what about TALE, the storytelling? So we had this name called, it sounds good it sounds good when you speak about it. But we had a name that no one could spell or say.
Yep.
Everyone was like, oh, the Ritali group, Ritali, Ritali. I'm like, oh my God, what do we do?
That's so interesting. You've ended up with a name that's like Fabe, quite similar to Fable. And the reason we went with Fable is the storytelling element. And that was like a key part of how you guys
we
thought about it
too. That storytelling. No one knew how to say it or no one understood what it was, but in our heads it was like the best name ever. It was like we spent like months coming up with a name, and then we were in a car ride and Roy was shooting things out, I was shooting things out, tit for tat. You could have menu item, I could have menu item. So Roy was like, why don't we say EAT? I was like, that's a good idea. And I was like, why don't we put ALE so it's a story? And we're like, all right, retail. Yeah, just probably the biggest flop of our careers.
So behind Fabe, you've got Piccolo Me with your 43 locations and more coming. You acquired Soul Bowl recently.
Yeah, so with Soul Bowl, we have a 75% stake in it. So part of our growth strategy is to work with entrepreneurs and business owners that have a great brand and just have been in the market for over 5 to 6 years, so are established, and just don't know how to take to go to that next level. So as a company, we want to meet entrepreneurs that are doing really cool things in a space not like ours, and who we feel we can add value to. So when we started with Lily last year, we did a whole project. She had recently did a rebrand, which we felt didn't really suit her brand. So we took it to a top agency, and our goal was to bring Soul Bowl, which is all about focusing on healthy eating, healthy desserts. When you say desserts, like bowls, we wanted to bring back the brand and strip it to what it really meant: handcrafted, healthy, clean eating. And so that was stage 1, and then stage 2 was put the operations system, and then stage 3 now we're at is rolling out the brand. So when we started, she had 3 stores. We're currently at 6. We'll be opening our 7th soon, and we're looking at probably another 3 to 4 by the end of the year. And we're also, since the rebrand, we've had international inquiries from the Middle East because they're very fond on having these type of products after dinner. They want to go out somewhere else and hang out. So yeah, it's exciting. I think very soon we'll be in Lebanon and quite possibly Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
Wow, you've had interest from all those markets for Soul Bowl specifically.
Yeah, for Soul Bowl. So it's quite exciting. And on the back of that, we've also launched our dual branded store. So a few weeks ago, we launched in the university.
And it's a Piccolo Me and a Soul Bowl.
Exactly. And the whole thinking behind that is you got the good and you got the naughty. And then if you want something healthy and clean, you've got it. If we've got a space and we can have 2 great brands side by side and reduce labor and reduce occupancy costs and share the resources, then you've got a winning formula.
That's great. How is that first co-branded, dual-branded one going?
It's going phenomenal. We were a bit skeptical in the beginning. Not skeptical, we believe, but you're always a bit gun shy. Like you don't know if it's going to take off or it isn't, because throughout your entrepreneur career, you've come up with a million great ideas and only 2 or 3 ever take. So yeah, it's done a lot better than we anticipated. And it's also opened our eyes up to, I did cut you off. You were talking about Munchiverse and Go Dark. So we do own a company called Go Dark, which does virtual brands. And we have a stable of really great brands. For example, one's called Yeah Birdie. And Yeah Birdie is our fried chicken brand. And we're looking at some of our sites now that will have Piccolo Me and Go Birdie. Just because we don't believe there's a big enough population for Soul Bowl. And on top of that, we're actually looking at our 3rd location now, where we're actually going to bring Yeah Birdie, Soul Bowl, and Piccolo Me into one space.
And so for the customer experience, so if you walk into the space, does it look like 2 kind of separate stores?
So it's very important for us that when a customer walks in, they know that there's multiple brands here. So I've seen a lot of companies try and do it where they just put a logo or they just put a screen with a different menu, and it doesn't work. And the thing is, everyone's like, "Oh, are you going to overwhelm the kitchen?" But these brands are already running in the stores through online and delivery. So all we're trying to do now is drive traffic into the stores. So there's a really interesting story about when we founded Go Dark. So prior to the pandemic, me and Roy and a couple of other brands like a Fishbowl were there and some other emerging brands were invited by Uber Eats to attend the conference in Hong Kong. That was and they just showed us what Uber Eats is going to do with the world. You know, they were talking about back then, if you went for a run, you lost 70 calories, then it would say, go to Piccolo Me and get this omelette. So we were quite lucky. So prior to the pandemic, we were already on Uber Eats and all these delivery platforms. So during the pandemic, when everyone was scrambling to get online, we were just optimizing. And one of those optimizations was to get rid of a multi-level menu. So back in the day, breakfast would be 8 to 10, lunch would be 10 to 12, and afternoon would be 12 to 3, and you'd only see those menus. So I actually wrote to Uber Eats. I think it was the Australian CEO, and I was like, "Nah, this is no good. People should be able to see the whole menu." And so we did that, and by accident, we had people ordering burgers at 6 a.m. now.
Yeah, tell us about the tit for tat that you and Roy have had with your virtual brands.
So during the pandemic, Piccolo Me was kicking ass on virtual brands. We went from doing $30 pre-pandemic to doing upwards of $12, $15, $2,000 a day now on virtual brand, and that's between 6 to 3 p.m. So I told Roy, I go, "Hey, if we're gonna do this amount of money during the day, why don't we create another brand called Piccolo Loaded, which is a virtual burger brand by Piccolo Me, and we just run it at night because we didn't want to have that full Piccolo Me menu on it because it was too much or too expensive to labor." And Roy's like, "Nah, it's never gonna work. Who's gonna go to a cafe to buy a burger?" And Roy was a massive Harry Potter fan, and he created this brand called Lord Voldemort, which was dedicated to his love of Harry Potter. And we both launched it at night in our most random location in the middle of an industrial park. And I did about $30 or $40 that night. and Roy did 4 grand first night on a virtual brand that no one has even heard about. It was crazy. And this brand took off so crazy that we used to have people dressed as Harry Potter come into our store during the pandemic thinking that we were a Harry, because no one knew what a virtual brand was back then, thinking we were a Harry Potter inspired cafe. And my brother took it one step further, and he created an Instagram page, and he was like, you know what, I'm just so sick of, with Piccolo Me, we have to be so by the books and so, polite to our customers. I'm just going to be so crazy and ruthless. So whenever anyone would comment or something, he'd be like, shut up, you're a muggle or this and that, you're...
Did you get another lawsuit?
Yeah, we actually did.
You did?
So we got a cease and desist by Warner Brothers. But it's not, we don't do it on purpose. We're just trying to, have fun. Like, we didn't go, oh, we're going to rip off Warner Brothers with this Harry Potter. We just did it for fun. Like, Roy is a massive Harry Potter fan. And he was just going along with that. And then, it just went crazy. And what we learned from that was when people, if you don't have a shop fit out, if people want to buy from a virtual brand, you need to create an experience. So we started, doing branded boxes. We started created Instagram pages for the brands. We started creating a whole experience. And that led into what Roy created was the Munchiverse. The Munchiverse is the platform where you can order from our own brands within the same marketplace through one cart. So you can come into a Piccolo Me, and then if you go to the kiosk, you can shop through the multiple brands now in store. You can do it through the app, and you can have it delivered. And for our customers, the order is still delivered by Uber Eats, but they don't have to pay that 30% extra to get that order.
You still manage the delivery? Then you guys have to organize the delivery? How do you do that?
No, so we use DoorDash or Uber Eats to third party.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so you can plug in, you can do the ordering on your app, and then you can still plug in, there's an API or something to plug in with.
So we've essentially gone from like this one cafe that pisses off French people to now a company that uses tech to fuel majority of our things.
On the menu side, how have you seen, you talked about alt milks before, how have you seen like non-meat menu items, and how have you seen that evolve over the years?
I definitely think a brand like yours is on the money, because people are not looking for, what I found in my business, if someone wants an option for vegetarian or vegan, they're not looking for something that tastes like beef. They're not looking for something that's artificial. They're not looking for something fake. If someone wants a vegetarian option, they want it to be real, pure. And we found that early days when we were trying to work with all those burger patties that gave you that fake meat experience. Very quickly, we found out customers weren't after that. If they want vegetarian, they don't want it to taste like meat. They want it to taste vegetarian, and they want to know that product has as less preservatives and fake stuff in it as possible. Those beefs, especially the ones that were self-bleeding, what's in them? I think the biggest play and the biggest flex is if you can have the menu and the products on the menu that use less preservatives, give a kick-ass taste, and are good for the environment. That's the biggest flex, I think, moving forward.
And how do you structure that, and how do you do that on your menu now at Piccolo Me and at Soul Bowl?
So Soul Bowl is very big on it. Our founder, the Soul Bowl brand essentially was founded out of the founder's kitchen. She didn't want to feed her kids any of that crap. She didn't want to feed her kids any ice cream or any desserts or any food that she didn't believe was naturally good. So she would make all these ingredients at home. So through her, she's taught us all about how you can make something taste good, and it doesn't have to have 100 ingredients in it. And through her knowledge, we're pushing it into the Piccolo Me, and we're reducing the reliance on processed and modified and probably not amazing products, So it's really important for us that as a brand, we practice what we preach.
And then you've been, you shared a very vulnerable and wonderful LinkedIn post recently. It sounds like you've been on a similar journey too. You were talking about how you felt you'd neglected your health, and now wanting to lean into that. Yeah, how's that journey been for you?
I think the biggest thing with entrepreneurs is that we wear a lot of hats. We carry a lot of people's problems, and we always put ourselves last. We never leave any time for ourselves. And this year, I made a promise to myself that, yes, I'm still going to focus on building my brand, my companies, and protecting my franchisees and everyone that's involved in our business. But I need to look after me. At the end of the day, if I'm not healthy, I'm not in the right mind frame, then how am I going to lead into the future? How many more years can I keep doing what I'm doing at this pace and not looking after myself? I have 4 children. One's 10, 8. I've got a 3-year-old and I got a baby. I am now, my baby, she's about to turn 1. I need to be able to be there when she's turned 18. I want to be able to take her to the sports. I want to be able to run with her in the park. And that to me is super important. And I feel it's important to get my message out there, especially on LinkedIn, because I didn't have a lot of help growing up. I didn't see a lot of things, but I do learn from, like, we have a lot of access now to podcasts, which we didn't have back then. There's a lot better access to the information. And I want to be there pioneering and leading that, you know what? I want to share the good and the bad. We're humans. I'm allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to share your messages. You're allowed to share when you're having a good day, when it's a bad day, without being feared to be judged. And just because you're a business leader doesn't mean that you have to sit up here high. You can be there and let people know that you're real.
That is a great note to end on too, Charlie. Thank you very much for joining me and sharing your story and your journey. Love what you do. Yeah, I loved meeting you and Roy 6 months ago, just before I met here. You guys have got amazing energy and positive, optimistic vibe. Really love what you guys do.
It was an honor to meet you as well. You're so accomplished in the field. You've done so much. So you know what? I think in life, you're never bigger than the next person. Like, I really was like starstruck when I met you, because you've done so much really cool things in business. To be able to sit here with you, talk, and just be real has been amazing. And I hope, through your podcast, a lot more people have the courage to stand up, talk, and just be real.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. I really appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you.
Keep going hard. And I can't wait to follow your journey.
Yeah, we'll try and bring the Australian brands, bring all our mushrooms to the US.
Yeah, let's do it.